I never planned on going to my 10-year high school reunion. In fact, when the invitation first showed up in my inbox, I laughed and deleted it. I was 30, living in Chicago, working remotely, and doing my best to forget most of my teenage years. High school wasn't some magical chapter of my life. It was awkward, confusing, and full of feelings I spent years trying to bury, especially the feelings I had for Hunter. Hunter was the kind of guy everyone remembered. Captain of the baseball team, tall, confident, the guy who somehow managed to be popular without acting like a jerk. And unfortunately for me, he was also the first guy I ever fell in love with. The problem? As far as I knew, Hunter was completely straight. Back then, nobody knew I was gay. Not even my closest friends. I spent 4 years pretending my heart didn't speed up whenever Hunter sat beside me in class. Pretending I wasn't disappointed every time he talked about some girl he liked. Pretending I didn't spend half my teenage years wishing things could be different. Then graduation happened. Life moved on. I came out in college. Hunter disappeared from my life. And eventually I convinced myself I'd gotten over him. At least that's what I thought. Then 3 weeks before the reunion, I got a message. Not from the school. Not from an old classmate. From Hunter himself. The notification popped up while I was working. Hunter Reed sent you a friend request. I stared at my screen. No way. For a second, I honestly wondered if it was a fake account. But it was him. The same dark hair. The same crooked smile. Just older. Somehow even more attractive than I remembered. I accepted the request before I could talk myself out of it. 5 minutes later, another notification appeared. You going to the reunion? My stomach dropped. It was ridiculous. I was 30 years old. Yet somehow one message from him had me feeling 16 again. I stared at the screen for nearly a minute before replying. Probably not. His response came almost immediately. You should. That was it. 3 words. But they kept replaying in my head for the rest of the day. You should. Not everyone should. Not it'll be fun. Just you should. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I always used to do that when it came to Hunter. By the end of the week, I'd somehow convinced myself to attend. I blamed curiosity. But if I was being honest, I knew exactly why I was going. I wanted to see him again. Just once. To prove I'd moved on. To prove he wasn't still capable of affecting me. Turns out I was wrong. Very wrong. The reunion was held at a renovated hotel downtown. I almost turned around 3 separate times on the drive there. The entire event felt like a bad idea. But eventually I found myself standing outside the ballroom, adjusting my jacket and trying not to look nervous. Voices and laughter spilled out through the open doors. I recognized some faces immediately. Others took a moment. People changed a lot in 10 years. Some looked older. Some looked exactly the same. A few looked completely different. I grabbed a drink and started making small talk. For the first hour, things were surprisingly easy. I chatted with old classmates. Laughed about terrible teachers, pretended I wasn't constantly scanning the room, looking for him. Then I saw him, and every bit of confidence I had vanished. Hunter stood near the bar talking to a group of people. He was wearing a dark blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was shorter than it used to be. His shoulders looked broader. His smile hadn't changed at all. I froze. For a moment, it felt like 10 years had disappeared. Like I was back in high school again. Like I was watching the guy who unknowingly owned my heart. Then Hunter turned and saw me. Our eyes met across the room. I expected a polite nod, maybe a quick wave. Instead, his entire face lit up. A genuine smile, the kind you don't fake. Before I could react, he excused himself from his group and started walking directly toward me. My pulse immediately doubled. Great. Fantastic. 30 years old and still acting like an idiot. William. His voice sounded deeper than I remembered. I somehow managed to smile. Hunter. For a second we just looked at each other. Both smiling. Both slightly awkward. Then he surprised me. He pulled me into a hug. Not one of those quick reunion hugs. A real one. Warm. Comfortable. Long enough for me to notice how good he smelled. Long enough for my heart to completely lose its mind. When we finally stepped apart, he laughed. I can't believe you're actually here. I almost didn't come. Good thing you did. There was something in the way he said it that caught me off guard. Something genuine. His eyes stayed on mine for a second longer than necessary. Then someone called his name from across the room. Hunter glanced over before looking back at me. You staying for the whole night? Probably. His smile widened. Good. Again. That single word. Good. Before I could ask what he meant, another classmate dragged him away. Hunter walked backward for a few steps, still smiling. I'll find you later, William. Then he disappeared into the crowd. And somehow those 5 words stayed with me for the rest of the evening. Because the truth was, Hunter wasn't acting like someone who had simply bumped into an old classmate. And for the first time all night, I started wondering if maybe seeing him again wasn't a coincidence after all. Maybe Hunter had wanted to see me too. For the next hour, I tried convincing myself I was imagining things. Maybe Hunter was just being friendly. Maybe that hug meant nothing. Maybe I was slipping back into old habits and reading too much into every little interaction. That explanation made sense. The problem was Hunter kept making it harder to believe. Every few minutes I'd catch him looking at me from across the room. Not constantly, just enough to notice. I'd be talking with someone, glance up, and there he'd be, watching. Then he'd smile and look away. The first couple times I ignored it. By the 5th or 6th time, I couldn't. I was standing near one of the buffet tables when he finally reappeared. Told you I'd find you. I turned and nearly laughed. Do you always keep your promises? Only the important ones. There it was again. That weird feeling. Like we were having a completely different conversation underneath the normal one. Hunter grabbed a drink and leaned against the table beside me. For the next 20 minutes we talked. Really talked. Not the usual reunion questions. Not the fake version people give each other. Actual conversation. He asked about my work, my apartment, my life. And unlike most people at reunions, he actually seemed interested in the answers. Eventually he smiled. You look happy. The comment caught me off guard. What? You look happy, he repeated. That's a good thing. I shrugged. I guess I am. You deserve that. Something about the sincerity in his voice made me pause. Hunter looked away briefly, then took a drink. I noticed his wedding ring finger was empty. Not that I'd been looking. Okay, I had absolutely been looking. So what about you? I asked casually. Married? Kids? A strange smile appeared. Nope. No. No wife. I nodded. Long-term girlfriend? He laughed. No girlfriend either. For some reason my heart sped up. Dangerous territory, William. Very dangerous territory. Hunter looked down at his glass, then back at me. What about you? I knew what he was asking. The question every gay man eventually faces. Do I say it? Or do I dodge it? 10 years ago I would have dodged it immediately. Now I was tired of hiding. No boyfriend currently. His eyes flickered, just for a second. But I caught it. Currently? I smiled. There have been a few. Hunter nodded slowly. A few boyfriends. Yeah. His gaze stayed on mine. And suddenly neither of us was talking. The noise of the reunion faded into the background. I watched something shift in his expression. Not surprise. Not discomfort. Something else. Something thoughtful. Then he smiled. A real smile. Good. I blinked. Good. He laughed softly. I'm glad you've had people. The answer felt strange. Not bad. Just strange. Before I could respond, one of our former classmates interrupted us. Hunter got pulled into another conversation. A few people recognized me too. The moment disappeared, but the feeling remained. Hours later, the reunion finally started winding down. People exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch, made plans they probably wouldn't keep. I was getting ready to leave when I heard my name. William. I turned. Hunter was standing a few feet away. The ballroom was almost empty now. Just a handful of people lingering. You heading out? Yeah. Me too. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Hunter shoved his hands into his pockets. You want to grab a drink? My stomach flipped. What? He laughed. Relax. Just a drink. I shook my head. I'm relaxed. You look terrified. Unfortunately, he wasn't wrong. The truth was I wasn't scared of having a drink with Hunter. I was scared of how much I wanted to. Still, I found myself saying yes. 15 minutes later, we were sitting in a quiet bar across the street. Just the two of us. No classmates. No reunion. No distractions. And somehow that felt far more intimidating. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily. We talked about college, jobs, travel, family, years of life we'd missed. At one point, Hunter leaned back and smiled. You know something? What? I always wondered what happened to you. I frowned. Really? Yeah. The answer came so quickly it surprised me. Hunter looked down at his drink. I looked you up a couple times over the years. Now it was my turn to stare. You did. His cheeks turned slightly red. I know that sounds weird. A little. He laughed. Fair. I couldn't stop smiling. Because suddenly I was remembering something. Back in high school, Hunter and I had been closer than most people realized. Not best friends, but close. Study partners. Lunch table friends. The kind of friendship that existed right on the edge of becoming something more. At least from my side. I never thought it meant anything to him. Yet sitting here now, listening to him admit he'd searched for me over the years, I wasn't so sure anymore. The night stretched on. One drink became two, then three. Neither of us seemed eager to leave. Eventually, Hunter glanced at his watch. Damn. What? It's after midnight. I looked too. Sure enough, hours had disappeared. Neither of us moved. Hunter smiled. Guess we're getting old. Speak for yourself. He laughed. The sound still did ridiculous things to me. Then his expression softened. You know. His voice grew quieter. What? He hesitated. For the first time all night, Hunter seemed nervous. Actually nervous. And that was new. Because Hunter had never been nervous about anything in high school. I almost didn't come tonight. I blinked. Really? He nodded. Then I heard you might be there. My heart stopped. Just for a second. The noise of the bar seemed to vanish. Hunter held my gaze. And suddenly that reunion invitation made a lot more sense. Because maybe I wasn't the only person who had gone hoping to see someone. Maybe after 10 years, Hunter had been hoping to see me too. For a moment, I wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. Hunter looked down at his drink, almost like he regretted saying it. I heard from Mark that you might show up. I stared. And that made you come? A small smile appeared. Partly. That single word was enough to keep my brain occupied for the next week. Because after that, neither of us explained what we meant. The conversation drifted elsewhere. Safer topics. Safer territory. But the feeling between us had changed. I could feel it. The same way you can feel a storm coming before the first drop of rain falls. Eventually the bar closed. We stepped outside into the cool night air. The city was mostly quiet. Streetlights reflected off parked cars. The Reunion Hotel glowed across the street. For a second, neither of us moved. It felt strange saying goodbye after spending almost 6 hours together. Hunter shoved his hands into his pockets. So, he laughed. You always this awkward? Only around former baseball captains. That earned a genuine grin. I'll take that. Then his expression softened. We should do this again. My pulse jumped. You mean another reunion in 10 years? Hopefully sooner than that. I smiled despite myself. Probably. Hunter pulled out his phone immediately. Give me your number. The speed of that response made me laugh. You don't waste time, do you? Nope. 5 minutes later, we finally headed to our cars. I expected that to be the end of it. A nice reunion. Fun night. Nothing more. Instead, Hunter texted me before I even got home. Made it back alive? I stared at the message and laughed. Barely. His reply arrived almost instantly. Good. Would have been awkward if I lost you again. Again. The word stuck with me, because somehow it felt like Hunter thought he'd already lost me once. And maybe he had. The next few weeks were dangerous. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because everything felt easy. Too easy. Texts became daily conversations. Daily conversations became phone calls. Phone calls became video chats. Some nights we'd talk for 10 minutes. Other nights we'd accidentally stay up until 2 in the morning. The weirdest part? Felt completely natural. Like we'd never spent 10 years apart. One Friday night, I was sitting on my couch eating takeout when Hunter called. I answered immediately. Hey. Hey yourself. You sound tired. I am tired. Long week. I groaned. You have no idea. Hunter laughed. The sound came through the speaker warm and familiar. I had started recognizing different versions of his laugh. The quick one. The sarcastic one. The genuine one. This was the genuine one. And I liked hearing it far more than I should have. You know, Hunter said suddenly. What? I forgot how easy it is talking to you. I froze. My heart immediately betrayed me. Yeah. His voice was quieter now. There aren't many people I can just be myself around. I swallowed. I know what you mean. A long silence followed. Not awkward, just comfortable. The kind that only happens when two people genuinely enjoy each other's company. Then Hunter spoke again. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd we lose touch? The question surprised me. I stared at my living room wall. Because the honest answer wasn't something I could tell him. Not yet. Because I had been hopelessly in love with him. Because watching him date girls had hurt. Because disappearing had been easier than staying. Instead, I chose a safer answer. Life happened. Hunter was quiet. Then he sighed. Yeah. But something told me he wasn't fully convinced. A month after the reunion, Hunter texted me on a Saturday morning. You busy next weekend? I frowned. Depends. Helpful. What's the plan? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. Finally, come visit. I stared at the screen. Hunter lived 3 hours away. Close enough for a weekend trip. Far enough that it felt significant. My heart immediately started doing stupid things. Visit? Yeah. Why? His response took longer this time. Because I miss talking to you in person. I actually stopped breathing for a second. Miss talking to you in person. Normal words. Completely normal. Yet they hit me harder than they should have. I spent 20 minutes debating my answer. Then another 10 pretending I wasn't excited. Finally, okay. The second I sent it, his reply appeared. Almost like he'd been waiting. Good. There was that word again. Good. The weekend arrived faster than expected. By Friday afternoon, I was driving toward Hunter's town. The entire trip felt ridiculous. I kept reminding myself this was just 2 old friends catching up. Nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. The problem was my heart refused to believe that. When I pulled into his driveway, Hunter was already outside. Waiting. The sight of him standing there smiling made something twist inside my chest. Because for the first time since high school, seeing him wasn't a surprise. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a reunion. Hunter had invited me, specifically me, and judging by the smile on his face as I got out of the car, he seemed just as happy about that as I was. What I didn't know yet was that this weekend was about to change everything. Because later that night, Hunter was finally going to tell me the truth. And once he did, nothing between us would ever be the same again. The moment I stepped out of my car, Hunter walked toward me. That smile was still there. The same one that had completely ruined my ability to think clearly since high school. About time. I laughed. It's a 3-hour drive. You survived. Barely. Hunter pulled me into a quick hug. A completely normal greeting. At least that's what I told myself. The problem was it didn't feel normal. Not when his arms wrapped around me. Not when he held on for a second longer than necessary. Not when my stupid heart immediately forgot how to behave. When he finally stepped back, he grinned. Come on. His house sat on the edge of a quiet neighborhood surrounded by trees. Nothing fancy, just comfortable. Felt exactly like Hunter. Inside, the place was surprisingly neat. I wasn't sure why that shocked me. Maybe because high school Hunter had been incapable of keeping a locker organized. Wow. What? You actually clean now? He looked offended. I've changed. Clearly. You're a jerk. I smiled. You invited me. Good point. The rest of the afternoon passed easily. We ordered food. Watched part of a baseball game. Made fun of terrible reality television. Felt strangely domestic. Dangerously comfortable. By evening, we were sitting on his back deck with drinks. The sun had started setting behind the trees. Everything felt calm. Relaxed. Hunter leaned back in his chair. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he surprised me. Can I ask you something? I looked over. Sure. His expression was serious now. Not nervous exactly, just thoughtful. When did you come out? The question caught me off guard. I took a sip of my drink. College. Hunter nodded slowly. You always know? I smiled. Pretty much. High school too. I laughed softly. Definitely high school. Hunter stared toward the yard. Quiet. Almost too quiet. Then he nodded again. I wondered. My heart skipped. You did? Yeah. That answer surprised me. Hunter shrugged. I wasn't sure. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The air felt different suddenly. More serious. More honest. Then Hunter took a deep breath. There was something I've wanted to tell you. My stomach tightened. Something about his tone made me sit up straighter. What is it? He looked down at the bottle in his hands, rotated it slowly, then looked at me, directly. I had a crush on you. The world stopped. I blinked. Once. Twice. Certain I'd misheard him. What? Hunter gave a nervous laugh. There it is. There what is? That look. I stared. My pulse was hammering now. No, seriously. My voice sounded weak. What did you just say? Hunter looked away, then back at me. I said I had a crush on you. The sentence hit harder the second time. My mind immediately rejected it. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. This was Hunter. The guy I'd spent years secretly loving. The guy I thought I'd never have a chance with. The guy who had unknowingly broken my heart before anything had even begun. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I genuinely didn't know how else to react. Hunter. I'm serious. No. His eyebrows lifted. No. You didn't. I did. No. Now he was laughing too. I appreciate your confidence. I'm serious. So am I. I stared at him, trying to find evidence he was joking. There wasn't any. His expression remained completely sincere. My chest felt tight. When? I finally asked. Hunter smiled sadly. Junior year. I nearly dropped my drink. Junior year. The exact same year I'd fallen for him. The exact same year I'd spent every day convincing myself he could never feel the same. You've got to be kidding. I'm not. You're serious? Unfortunately, I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process what I was hearing. Hunter watched me, then laughed softly. You look like your brain just exploded. It kind of did. His smile faded. Honestly, William? I looked up. I thought you hated me. What? Back then. I stared. Hated you? Yeah. Hunter shrugged. You never flirted. You never flirted. I definitely flirted. I laughed in disbelief. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. When? He pointed at me. See? That's exactly the problem. I couldn't stop laughing now. The whole situation felt absurd. Years. We had lost years. Because two idiots apparently couldn't communicate. Hunter shook his head. There were so many times I thought about saying something. My smile faded. Why didn't you? His expression changed. The answer clearly wasn't simple. Finally he sighed. Because I was scared. That surprised me more than anything. Hunter. Scared. It didn't fit the version of him I'd carried around all these years. I thought you were confident. I pretended to be. His voice was quiet now. Big difference. For a moment neither of us spoke. The sun had almost disappeared. The backyard was growing darker. Hunter looked at me. Really looked at me. Then smiled. You know what's funny? What? I spent years wondering what would have happened if I just told you. My heartbeat doubled. Because I'd spent years wondering exactly the same thing. And judging by the way Hunter was looking at me now, I had a feeling neither of us was wondering anymore. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The air between us felt completely different now. Not because Hunter had admitted he used to have a crush on me. Because suddenly every memory I had of high school was changing. Every glance. Every conversation. Every moment I'd spent convincing myself he could never feel the same. What are you thinking? Hunter asked. I laughed softly. Honestly, yeah. I'm thinking about how much time we wasted. Hunter's smile faded slightly. Me too. The answer hurt more than I expected. Because he sounded sincere. like he'd thought about it before. Maybe a lot. The sun finally disappeared behind the trees. Soft lights from the deck illuminated the space around us. Hunter leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You ever wonder what would have happened? I looked at him. Back then. Yeah. I smiled. All the time. Hunter let out a slow breath. Me too. The confession settled between us. Quiet, heavy, real. For years I'd imagined having this conversation. Yet now that it was actually happening, I wasn't sure what to do with it. Hunter stood up first. I need another drink. I laughed. Good idea. A few minutes later we were back outside. This time sitting closer than before. Not intentionally. At least that's what I told myself. The conversation drifted toward old memories. Teachers, friends, football games, embarrassing stories. The kind of things people usually talk about when reconnecting. But beneath every topic was something else. Awareness. The knowledge that neither of us was seeing the other the same way anymore. At one point Hunter pulled out his phone. You remember this? He handed it over. I looked down, then immediately groaned. No. Oh yes. No. Hunter laughed. The photo showed both of us at a school fundraiser. I looked ridiculous. Hunter looked annoyingly handsome. Some things never changed. I hated this picture. I know. Then why do you still have it? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Hunter froze. Just briefly, then shrugged. Never deleted it. My chest tightened. Of all the photos he could have kept over the years, he'd kept one of us. The realization lingered. Neither of us acknowledged it. But we both felt it. Hours passed. The conversation never ran out. Eventually it was after midnight. The same as the reunion. The same strange feeling that neither of us wanted the night to end. Hunter stretched. You know. What? I'm glad you came. I smiled. I'm glad you invited me. His eyes stayed on mine. Longer than necessary. Again. That look. The one I'd started noticing at the reunion. The one that felt impossible to ignore now. My heartbeat sped up. Hunter looked away first. A rare occurrence. Then he laughed quietly. This is weird. A little. A lot. I nodded. A lot. We both laughed. The tension broke slightly, but not completely, because the truth sat right there between us. Neither of us wanted to say it first. Neither of us wanted to risk ruining whatever this was becoming. Eventually Hunter stood. I should probably show you the guest room. The words hit me harder than they should have. Guest room. Right. Of course. I followed him inside. The house was quiet. The hallway lights dim. Hunter opened a door. There you go. The room was comfortable. Simple. Perfectly normal. I turned toward him. Thanks. Anytime. Neither of us moved. And suddenly the doorway felt very small. Very quiet. Hunter looked nervous again. The same way he'd looked earlier on the deck. Like he was debating something. Then he smiled. Good night, William. My heart sank a little. Good night. He started walking away. Made it 2 steps. Then stopped. I watched his shoulders rise with a deep breath. Slowly he turned back around. The look in his eyes immediately stole every coherent thought from my brain. Actually, my pulse jumped. Yeah. Hunter laughed nervously, then shook his head. No. What? He rubbed the back of his neck. Exactly the way he used to in high school when he was anxious. For some reason that detail made my chest ache. I was gonna say something. Then say it. Hunter looked at me, really looked at me, and suddenly there was no distance left between us. Not emotionally. Not anymore. His voice dropped slightly. I don't think I ever got over you. The words hit harder than anything else he'd said all weekend. I stared at him, completely speechless, because this wasn't about high school anymore. This wasn't about old crushes, or old regrets, or missed opportunities. This was now, present tense, current, real. Hunter swallowed, his eyes never leaving mine. And for the first time since I'd known him, I realized he was every bit as terrified as I was. Because neither of us knew what happened next. But we both knew there was no going back. I don't think I ever got over you. The words hung in the air between us. Neither of us moved. Neither of us looked away. For years, I'd imagined hearing something like that from Hunter, usually late at night, usually right before reality reminded me it would never happen. But now he was standing right in front of me, actually saying it, actually meaning it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Hunter gave a nervous laugh. See? That was a terrible idea. I blinked. What? Saying that. His smile looked uncertain now. Vulnerable. I should have kept my mouth shut. No. The word came out before I could stop it. Hunter looked up immediately. No. I took a breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. No. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I laughed softly. 'Cause honestly, what else could I do? Hunter. Yeah. I had a crush on you for like 4 years. His eyes widened. What? I couldn't help smiling. See? That's exactly how I felt 5 seconds ago. Hunter stared at me, then started laughing. The genuine kind. The kind that made his eyes crinkle. The kind I'd always loved. 4 years. Pretty much. Holy hell. Yeah. He shook his head, a disbelieving smile spreading across his face. You're kidding. I'm not. 4 years. You seem really stuck on that number. Hunter rubbed a hand across his face. I just can't believe we were both this stupid. That made me laugh. Because he wasn't wrong. Not even a little. Years. We'd wasted years. Hunter leaned against the hallway wall, still smiling. Then his expression softened. You really liked me? The question was quiet, almost boyish. I nodded. Yeah. His eyes dropped briefly, as if hearing that meant something to him. Maybe it did. Then he looked back at me. I would have lost my mind if I'd known. My stomach flipped. Hunter laughed again. Actually, no. What? I definitely would have lost my mind. I smiled. So would I. Another silence followed. But this one felt different. Comfortable. Warm. Like we'd finally stopped pretending. Like we'd both spent years carrying the same secret and suddenly set it down. Hunter looked at me. I've thought about this conversation before. I raised an eyebrow. You have. A lot. That answer hit harder than it should have. A lot. He nodded. More than I'd ever admit publicly. I couldn't stop smiling. Neither could he. Felt ridiculous. Like two people discovering they had somehow been living in parallel for a decade. Always one step apart. Always missing each other by inches. Hunter stepped closer. Not dramatically. Just enough that I noticed. Just enough that my pulse immediately sped up again. His voice lowered. You know what's funny? What? I was terrified you'd say you weren't interested. I laughed softly. I was terrified you'd never feel the same. His smile widened. Well. Neither of us moved. The distance between us suddenly felt very noticeable. Very small. Hunter looked down briefly, then back at me. The nervousness was still there. But something else had replaced part of it. Hope. The same thing I was feeling. For years I'd convinced myself that chapter of my life was over. That whatever existed between us had been left behind in high school. Yet standing here now, it felt like something was just beginning. Hunter shook his head. You have no idea how happy I am that you came. My chest tightened. Same. His eyes stayed on mine. Neither of us seemed capable of looking away. Then he smiled. A slow, genuine smile. The kind that reached his eyes. The kind that made me completely forget what I was supposed to be thinking. Good. There it was again. That word. The same word he'd used at the reunion. The same word he'd texted me. The same word he'd been saying for weeks. And suddenly I understood why. Because every time he said it, he was really saying something else. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I found you again. I'm glad this is happening. I took a step closer. Hunter's breath caught slightly. Just enough for me to notice. For once, the confident guy I'd known my whole life looked just as nervous as I felt. And honestly, that made me like him even more. We talked for another hour. Sitting in the living room this time. Neither of us remotely tired anymore. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Except now everything was different. The walls were gone. No more pretending. No more guessing. No more wondering. Around 2 in the morning, Hunter finally looked at the clock. Damn. I laughed. What? It's 2. I looked. Sure enough, neither of us had noticed. Again. Hunter shook his head. We should probably sleep. Probably. Neither of us stood up. That made both of us laugh. Eventually we did. This time when we reached the hallway, things felt less uncertain. Not solved. Not completely. But different. Better. Hunter stopped outside the guest room. His smile softer now. I'm really glad you came, William. I smiled. I'm really glad you asked. For a moment we just stood there, both smiling, neither wanting the night to end. Then Hunter nodded. Good night. Good night. As I stepped into the room, I realized something. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't wondering what could have happened between Hunter and me. I was wondering what would happen next. And somehow that felt even better. I barely slept. Not because the guest room was uncomfortable. Not because anything was wrong. My brain simply refused to shut off. Every conversation from the previous day replayed on a loop. Hunter admitting he'd had a crush on me. Hunter telling me he never got over me. The look in his eyes when we talked. The way everything suddenly made sense. At some point near sunrise, I finally drifted off. The next thing I knew, someone was knocking on the door. William, I groaned. Go away. A laugh came from the other side. No. I opened one eye. The clock showed 9:17. Far too early for human interaction. The door opened slightly. Hunter peeked inside. You're alive. Barely. Coffee? That got my attention. I sat up. Okay. Now you're speaking my language. Hunter grinned. Thought so. 20 minutes later, we were sitting on the back deck again. Coffee mugs in hand. The morning air was cool and quiet. Everything felt surprisingly normal, which was strange. After everything we talked about, I expected things to be awkward. Instead, they felt easier than ever. Hunter looked relaxed, happy. Every so often, I'd catch him smiling for no reason. And honestly, I was doing the same thing. Around noon, we decided to drive into town. Lunch turned into wandering through local shops. That turned into ice cream. Then a walk through a park near the river. Hours disappeared. At one point, we were sitting on a bench overlooking the water. Hunter leaned back and sighed. This is nice. I smiled. Yeah. He glanced at me. You know what I realized? What? We've never actually done this. I frowned. Done what? Spent time together without school. I laughed. He was right. Every memory I had of Hunter existed inside classrooms, hallways, football games, and school events. This was different. This was two adults choosing to spend time together. No obligations. No schedules. No excuses. Just because they wanted to. The realization hit me harder than expected. Because I wanted this. More than I should. Hunter's expression softened. I wish we'd done this years ago. My chest tightened. Me too. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Hunter looked toward the river. I almost contacted you 100 times. I blinked. What? He nodded. Over the years. I stared. Seriously? Yeah. His laugh was embarrassed now. I'd find your social media. Then what? I'd stare at the message button. I couldn't stop smiling. And then I'd talk myself out of it. The image was strangely adorable. Hunter Reed. Former baseball captain. Popular guy. Apparently terrified of sending a message. I would have answered. He looked at me. A sad smile appearing. I know that now. Something about that sentence hurt. Not because of what it meant. Because of how many years had passed before we got here. Eventually we headed back to his house. The drive felt quieter. Not uncomfortable. Just thoughtful. Both of us seemed lost in our own heads. When we arrived, Hunter parked in the driveway but didn't get out immediately. Neither did I. The engine shut off. Silence settled around us. Hunter looked at me. There was that look again. The one I'd started noticing at the reunion. Only now it was impossible to misunderstand. I don't want this weekend to end. The confession came quietly. Honestly, I swallowed. Me neither. His eyes stayed on mine. Neither of us looked away. Then Hunter laughed softly. We're making up for 10 years all at once. Maybe. Definitely. I smiled. He smiled back. The same smile that had somehow survived a decade. The same smile that still made my heart do ridiculous things. Eventually we got out of the truck. The afternoon slipped away. Dinner came and went. Night arrived. And with every passing hour, a reality became harder to ignore. Tomorrow I was leaving. Tomorrow I'd drive home. Tomorrow this weekend would end. Hunter seemed aware of it too, because as evening settled over the house, he grew quieter, more thoughtful, not distant, just aware, like neither of us wanted to acknowledge the approaching goodbye. Later that night, we found ourselves back on the deck, the same place where everything had changed. String lights glowed softly overhead. The neighborhood was quiet. Hunter stared out into the darkness, then finally spoke. "You know something?" "What?" His eyes found mine. "I think seeing you again was the best thing that's happened to me in years." The words hit me directly in the chest, because I knew exactly what he meant, because I felt the same way, and because for the first time since high school, I wasn't scared of where this was going. I was scared of losing it, and that realization changed everything. Tomorrow would decide what happened next, whether this became a memory or the beginning of something real. I barely slept that night, not because I was anxious, because I knew the weekend was ending. By noon, I'd be back on the road, back to my apartment, back to my normal life. The thought bothered me more than I wanted to admit. When I walked into the kitchen the next morning, Hunter was already there, coffee in hand, looking tired. "Morning, morning." He smiled, but it wasn't his usual smile. Something was different, more subdued, like he'd slept as poorly as I had. We spent the morning together, neither of us mentioning my departure, neither of us pretending it wasn't coming. Eventually, there was no avoiding it. My bag sat by the front door. My car was packed. The clock kept moving. Hunter stood beside me in the driveway, hands in his pockets. The same position he'd taken 100 times over the weekend whenever he was nervous. I hated how quickly I'd learned his tells, mostly because I liked knowing them. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Finally, I sighed. "Well, yeah." I laughed softly. "You're really bad at goodbyes." Hunter smiled. "So are you." "Fair." Another silence followed, the kind that only happens when people have something important to say but aren't sure how. Then Hunter surprised me. Again. "When can I see you?" I blinked. "What?" He stepped forward slightly. "When can I see you again? Not if. When." My heart immediately felt lighter. I smiled. "You asking me out?" Hunter laughed. "Maybe." That sounded suspiciously like a yes. "Okay." His grin widened. "Yes." I couldn't stop smiling. After 10 years. After all the mischances. After all the assumptions. The answer was somehow that simple. "Next weekend?" I asked. Hunter looked genuinely relieved. "Yeah. Yeah." His smile became impossible to hide. "Good." I laughed immediately. "There it is." "What?" "That word." Hunter frowned. "What word?" "Good." He looked confused. Then realization hit, and he started laughing. "Oh, you say it constantly." "I do not." "You absolutely do." "Okay, maybe I do." I shook my head. "Every time you're happy about something." Hunter looked down for a second, then back at me, his expression softer now, more vulnerable. "Maybe that's because I spent a lot of years not getting what I wanted." The words landed heavily, not dramatic, just honest. I understood exactly what he meant, because I'd spent those same years doing the same thing. Hunter took another step closer. So, his eyes stayed on mine. "I don't want another 10 years. My chest tightened. "You won't get one." Something changed in his smile. Relief, hope, maybe a little disbelief, like he still couldn't quite believe this was real. Honestly, neither could I. Then Hunter did something that made me laugh. "What?" He rubbed the back of his neck, looking suddenly nervous. Again. "You know, for someone who played sports in front of hundreds of people." "Yeah. I'm ridiculously nervous right now." I smiled. "I noticed." "Thanks." "Anytime." We both laughed. Then the moment settled. Quiet, comfortable, real. For years I'd imagined what would happen if I ever saw Hunter again. Most of those fantasies ended before they really began, because I never believed anything could come from it. I never imagined we'd spend an entire weekend talking. I never imagined he'd felt the same way. and I definitely never imagined we'd be standing here planning our future. Yet somehow that's exactly what was happening. Hunter looked at me, that familiar smile returning. The one that had started all of this years ago. The one that somehow felt even better now. I'll call you tonight. You better. I will. Good. Hunter pointed at me immediately. See? You do it too. I laughed. Maybe. Definitely. For a second, neither of us moved. Neither seemed eager for the moment to end. But eventually it had to. Pulled him into a hug. A real one. The kind that says more than words. Hunter hugged me back instantly, holding on tightly, neither of us in a hurry to let go. When we finally stepped apart, he smiled. Drive safe, William. I will. Then I got into my car, started the engine, and slowly pulled out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, Hunter was still standing there, watching, smiling, the same way I was. For a long time, I thought seeing Hunter again would reopen an old wound. Instead, it gave me something I never expected. A second chance. Not at the past. At the future. And as my phone buzzed with a text before I even reached the end of his street, I already knew the story wasn't ending. Miss you already. I laughed out loud. Then typed back. Good.